6 months had passed since the Battle of New Busan. The galaxy had changed in ways both obvious and subtle. Trade routes that once avoided human space now sought it out. Species that had dismissed humanity for centuries now requested diplomatic meetings. The 12 systems that humans occupied had become some of the most important in known space, not through conquest, but through respect born from fear. Captain Hyojin stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable, looking out at the stars. The massive warship patrolled the border of human space, a silent guardian watching for threats. But today felt different, quieter, safer perhaps. Behind her, young Officer Min-Soo approached nervously. He was fresh from the academy, assigned to navigation and still learning how things worked on a Vanguard-class ship. "Captain, permission to speak?" "Granted, Min-Soo. What is on your mind?" The young man struggled to find the right words. "Captain, I have been reading the reports from New Busan, watching the footage, studying the tactics, and I keep wondering, why did we show mercy? We could have destroyed the Kralix fleet completely, sent a stronger message, made sure no one would ever threaten us again." Hyojin turned to face him. Her expression was kind but serious. "Come here, Min-Soo. Look at those stars. How many worlds do you think are out there? How many species? How many lives?" "Millions, Captain. Maybe billions. And how many of them do you think fear us now?" Min-Soo hesitated. "Most of them, I imagine." "Exactly. They fear us because we showed what we can do. But fear alone is not enough. Fear creates resentment. Fear creates enemies who will strike when they think they have a chance. We showed mercy because we want something more than fear. We want understanding." She gestured to the stars. "Power's not about what you do with it, Min-Soo. It is about what you choose not to do. We could dominate this galaxy. We could conquer world after world. Our technology is centuries ahead of most species. Our weapons are devastating, but that is not who we are. We are people who remember what war costs. We remember what we lost, and we refuse to inflict that on others unless absolutely necessary." Min-Soo absorbed her words. "But some species still see us as a threat. I have read the communications. Some call us monsters. Others say we are too dangerous to exist. Let them think what they want. We know who we are. Our families know. Our friends know. That is what matters. We are not monsters. We are guardians. We protect what is ours, and we hope that is enough." On New Busan, the rebuilding was nearly complete. The colony had not been destroyed thanks to the Indomitable's quick response, but the fear of that day still lingered. Lieutenant Bora, now promoted to commander, walked through the spaceport where delegations from across the galaxy arrived daily. Today, a group of insectoid visitors from the Vel system arrived. They were merchants hoping to establish trade agreements. Bora greeted them personally, her smile warm and genuine. "Welcome to New Busan. We are glad to have you here." The lead merchant, a smaller version of High Arbiter Velthera, clicked her mandibles nervously. "Thank you, Commander. We are honored. We bring goods and technology to trade. We hope to show that not all species dismissed humanity. Some of us wanted to listen." Bora appreciated the sentiment. "The past is past. What matters now is building a better future. Come, let me show you our colony. See how we live. See that we are not so different from you." The tour lasted hours. The merchants saw human families, human schools, human markets. They saw art and music and laughter. They saw people living normal lives, not soldiers preparing for war. It confused them. "You are so peaceful," the lead merchant said. "After seeing what your warship did, I expected a military society. Warriors everywhere. But you are just people." "We are just people," Bora confirmed. "People who learn to defend ourselves. There is a difference between being peaceful and being helpless. We choose to be peaceful, but we will never be helpless again." On Earth, in the capital of the Terran Union, Ambassador Tae-min worked with representatives from dozens of species to draft a new galactic compact. The old treaties and agreements had been insufficient, as recent events proved. This new framework would be stronger, clearer, and binding. "The first principle," Tae-min said, addressing the assembly, "is simple: sovereignty. Every species, no matter how large or small, has absolute sovereignty over their claimed territory. No exceptions, no special cases. If your people live there, it is yours." A reptilian diplomat raised a concern. But what if a species expands too aggressively? What if they claim resources needed by others? Then negotiate, trade, share, but do not invade. Do not attack. The moment you violate another species' sovereignty, you forfeit your own protections. This compact is built on mutual respect. Break that respect, and you face consequences from everyone, not just your victim. The debate continued for weeks, but eventually, the Galactic Compact was finished. Its principles were straightforward: respect sovereignty, honor treaties, settle disputes through negotiation, and maintain the right of self-defense. 147 species signed it. The Kralix Empire, humbled and desperate to restore their reputation, signed first. In a private moment after the signing ceremony, Kuvran approached Taimin. The old reptilian diplomat had become something of a friend, one of the few who had shown caution when others showed arrogance. "Ambassador, may I ask you something personal?" "Of course, Counselor." "How do your people live with it?" "The power you possess? The knowledge that you could destroy entire civilizations if you chose?" Taimin was quiet for a moment. "We live with it the same way anyone lives with dangerous knowledge. We teach it to our children. We remember our history. We visit memorials to the dead. We make sure every generation understands what war costs, what violence leads to, what power corrupts if not carefully controlled." He pulled out a small photo, showing a memorial on Earth. Thousands of names carved into black stone. "These are the people we lost in the Vec War. Soldiers, yes, but also civilians, families, children. Every human child visits this memorial at least once in their education. They learn the names. They hear the stories, and they understand that this must never happen again. That is why you show restraint. That is why we show restraint. Power without wisdom is destruction. Strength without compassion is cruelty. We learned that lesson in Blood and Fire. We will not forget it." Years later, a ceremony was held on Earth. A new memorial was unveiled, honoring not just human dead, but all victims of war, the Vec who had died, the Kralix who had been injured, even species whose names had been forgotten. The inscription was simple, written in every major galactic language. "We remember the cost. We pray we never pay it again, but we remain ready." Dignitaries from across the galaxy attended. High Arbiter Velthara stood beside Ambassador Taimin, both elderly now, both changed by the events of that year. She looked at the memorial, at the names, at the commitment it represented. "You have taught us something important, Ambassador. Power is not about domination. It is about responsibility. I hope others remember that lesson, High Arbiter, because humanity will not always be the strongest. Someday, another species will develop technology that surpasses ours. When that day comes, we hope they will show the same restraint we showed." Above Earth, the orbital defense network hummed with quiet power. Hundreds of ships, each bearing the Terran Union insignia, each ready to defend if needed. The Indomitable floated among them, undergoing maintenance and resupply. Captain Hyojin had retired, passing command to a younger officer who understood the responsibility. But the ship remained. The fleet remained. The capability remained. Not as a threat, but as a promise to defend the innocent, a promise to honor treaties, a promise to show restraint whenever possible, but strength when necessary. Minsu, now a captain himself, commanded a smaller patrol vessel near the border. He remembered Captain Hyojin's words about power and responsibility. He taught them to his own crew, making sure they understood that weapons were tools of last resort, not first response. On New Busan, Commander Bo-Ra watched another delegation arrive. This time, they were students from a dozen worlds coming to study human culture and history. They wanted to understand how a species could be both peaceful and powerful. She smiled, thinking about how much had changed. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still disputes, still tensions, still occasional conflicts. But something fundamental had shifted. Species thought twice before attacking others. Treaties were honored more carefully. Diplomacy was tried before military action. The Galactic Council actually enforced its own rules now, afraid of what might happen if they did not. And through it all, humanity remained what they had always been, people who wanted to live in peace, raise their families, explore the stars, and share the universe with others. They did not seek to rule. They did not desire empire. They simply wanted to exist without fear. But they would never be victims again. The myths were real. The legends were true. And the galaxy was better for knowing it. In a small cafe on Earth, Ambassador Taimin sat with his granddaughter. She was young, curious, full of questions about the universe. Captain Hyojin sat in her command chair, her expression calm as chaos erupted around her target. She was in her 40s, her hair pulled back in a simple tie, wearing the plain gray uniform of the Terran Union. Her hands rested lightly on the armrests, not gripping, not tense. She had done this before. Tactical, she said quietly. Status of enemy fleet. Commander Jiwoo, her tactical officer, read from his displays without emotion. 37 hostile vessels remaining. They are attempting to scatter. Some are trying to reach faster than light speed. Others are regrouping for another attack. Their command structure appears disrupted. Weapon status? Main lance at 40% charge. Point defense grid fully operational. Missile banks loaded and ready. Shield strength at 99.8%. Hyojin nodded. The Kralliks had thrown everything they had at the Indomitable, and her shields had barely noticed. She felt no satisfaction in this, only a deep sadness. They had been warned. They had chosen not to listen. Communications, she said. Open a channel to the enemy flagship. Fleetmaster Draknor's face appeared on the main screen. He looked terrified, his confident demeanor completely shattered. His bridge behind him showed chaos, with officers shouting and alarms blaring. "What are you?" he demanded, his voice cracking. "What kind of weapon is this? This violates every treaty, every law of warfare." Hyojin's expression did not change. "Fleetmaster, you attacked a civilian population. You ignored diplomatic warnings. You fired first. We are simply defending our territory. You still have a choice. Order your ships to stand down, deactivate weapons, and prepare to be escorted out of this system. Your crews will not be harmed, or you can continue fighting and we will disable every vessel in your fleet." "Disable?" Draknor laughed, a harsh sound edged with hysteria. "You destroyed 3 of my ships." "No, Fleetmaster. We destroyed 3 empty ships. Our sensors detected their crew evacuation before we fired. We gave them 11 seconds to reach their escape pods. All personnel survived. We do not kill when we do not have to. But we will if you force our hand. Choose now." Draknor cut the channel. On his bridge, he turned to his officers. "She is bluffing. 1 ship cannot disable 37. Continue evasive maneuvers. All vessels prepare for synchronized attack. We strike together, overwhelm their defenses. Go!" The remaining Kralik ships regrouped, forming a sphere around the Indomitable. They would attack from all directions at once, making it impossible for the human ship to target them all. It was a classic fleet tactic, one that had worked countless times in Kralik's history. Hyojin watched the enemy formation take shape. "They are not going to surrender," she said. "No, Captain," Jiwoo confirmed. "All vessels are charging weapons. Estimate 15 seconds to firing readiness." "Very well. Tactical, implement pattern Delta 7. Disable only. Preserve all life support systems. Target engines and weapons exclusively." "Acknowledged, Captain." What happened next would be analyzed by military historians for decades. The Indomitable did not wait for the Kraliks to fire. It moved first, but not in any way the enemy expected. The massive warship seemed to blur, its position becoming uncertain. Advanced human technology bent space around the vessel, allowing it to be in multiple places at once, or to move so fast that sensors could not track it properly. To the Kraliks, it appeared as if multiple copies of the human ship had appeared. Then it fired. Not 1 lance, but dozens of smaller beams, each targeting a specific component on a specific ship. The precision was surgical, almost artistic. 1 beam sliced through a ship's engine core, deactivating it instantly. Another melted a weapons array without touching the hull around it. A third cut through a shield generator, leaving everything else intact. In less than 30 seconds, 15 Kralik ships were disabled, drifting helplessly. Their crews were alive, life support was functioning, but the ships could no longer fight or run. The Indomitable reappeared in the center of the formation, exactly where it had started. On New Busan, Lieutenant Bora watched the battle with her mouth open. Jaeho stood beside her, equally stunned. The Defense Command Center had gone completely silent, every person staring at the displays. "How?" Jaeho whispered. "How is this possible?" Bora shook her head slowly. "This is what we are. This is what we became. After the war with the Vec, we swore it would never happen again. We swore that no enemy would ever make us helpless. So we built ships like the Indomitable. We built weapons that would make any aggressor think twice. And we waited, hoping we would never need to use them." The Kralik's fleet was in full retreat now. Draknor had lost all pretense of military discipline. His remaining ships scattered in every direction, trying desperately to reach the system edge where they could jump to faster-than-light speed. But the Indomitable was faster. It caught them one by one, not by chasing but by anticipating. It seemed to know where they would run before they did. Each ship that tried to escape found the human warship already there, waiting. A quick beam and their engines died, another ship disabled, another crew left alive but helpless. Commander Jiwoo monitored the tactical situation with professional detachment. 22 vessels disabled, 12 attempting to flee, 3 have surrendered and are awaiting instructions. Captain Hyojin allowed herself a small sigh. Tell the 3 that surrendered to cut all power except life support. We will send recovery teams once this is finished. Continue pursuit of the others. Captain, Jiwoo said carefully, one of the fleeing vessels is the enemy flagship. Recommend priority targeting. Negative. We disable them in order of threat level, not rank. The fleet master will wait his turn. It took 20 more minutes to finish the battle, if it could even be called that. The Indomitable moved through the Kralix fleet like a surgeon, cutting precisely, disabling completely, but killing no one. When it was done, 40 Kralix warships drifted in space around New Busan. Not one had escaped. Not one crew member had died, though many were injured from the sudden loss of power and the panic that followed. Fleet Master Draknor sat in his darkened bridge, emergency lighting casting red shadows. His ship was dead in space. His fleet was destroyed. His career was over. But he was alive, and so were his people. A communication channel opened and Captain Hyojin's face appeared. She looked tired, sad even, but her voice remained firm. Fleet Master, you and your crews will be held here until a Galactic Council peacekeeping force arrives to take custody. You will receive food, water, and medical care. Your injured will be treated. When you return to your people, you will tell them exactly what happened here. You will tell them that humanity gave warnings. You will tell them that humanity showed mercy. And you will tell them that if anyone attacks us again, we will not be as patient. Draknor found his voice. What are you? Hyojin's expression softened slightly. We are people who remember. We remember what war costs. We remember what we lost. We remember what we had to become to survive. And we hope every day that we never have to do this again. But we will. If you force us, we will, she cut the channel. On the bridge of the Indomitable, she stood and addressed her crew. Send medical teams to the disabled vessels. Priority to critical injuries. Dispatch recovery drones to collect all escape pods. I want a full casualty report within the hour. And send a message to New Busan that they can return home. The crew worked efficiently, following orders that they had practiced countless times but hoped never to use in actual combat. They were good at what they did, but none of them celebrated the victory. They had destroyed an enemy fleet without losing a single life, but the weight of it still felt heavy. On the council station, Dr. Sung-ho watched the sensor data in disbelief. The entire battle had lasted less than 1 hour. 1 human ship against 40. 0 casualties on either side, but one side completely victorious. The implications were staggering. He immediately requested an emergency council session. High Arbiter Velthara would not want to hear what he had to say, but she needed to hear it. The galaxy needed to hear it. The myths were not myths. The legends were real. The Kralix assault fleet moved through space like a swarm of predators. 40 warships arranged in perfect formation, their hulls painted in threatening colors of red and black. Fleet Master Draknor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Conquerors, Fist watching the tactical display with satisfaction. New Busan hung on the screen like ripe fruit waiting to be picked. Status report, Draknor commanded. His voice echoed through the bridge, sharp and demanding. Approaching the outer system boundary now, Fleet Master, his navigation officer reported. No hostile contacts detected. Only civilian evacuation ships and automated defense platforms. The humans are running just as we predicted. Draknor's lipless mouth stretched in what passed for a smile among his species. Of course they are running. What else could they do? 40 warships against a handful of defense satellites. This will be the easiest conquest in our empire's history. On the planet below, Lieutenant Bo-Ra watched the same tactical display from her command post. The building shook slightly as another transport launched from the spaceport nearby. She had dark circles under her eyes from 3 days of constant work, coordinating the evacuation of 2 million people. It was an impossible task, but they were doing their best. Her second-in-command, a young officer named Jae-ho, looked at her with worry. "Lieutenant, the last civilian transport leaves in 20 minutes. After that, only military personnel remain. What are our orders?" Bora kept her eyes on the screen. "We stay. We man the defense platforms. We buy time for the civilians to reach safe distance. But, Lieutenant, the defense platforms won't stop them. We have 12 satellites with light plasma cannons. They have 40 warships with heavy weapons. It is suicide." "I know," Bora said quietly. "But it is our duty. Besides, I received a message from Earth. Help is coming." Jae-ho wanted to ask what kind of help could possibly arrive in time, but the look in his lieutenant's eyes stopped him. She knew something he did not. Meanwhile, on the council station, Dr. Sung-ho had not slept in 2 days. He sat surrounded by data pads and holographic displays, each showing fragments of information about humanity's past. The more he read, the more disturbed he became. The human-Vec war had been catastrophic for both sides, but the way it ended made no sense according to conventional military theory. The Vec had been a powerful empire, controlling over 50 systems with a massive military fleet. They had attacked human colonies, confident of easy victory. The war lasted only 3 years. In the first year, humanity lost 20 colonies and appeared to be losing badly. In the second year, the tide turned suddenly. In the third year, the Vec Empire sued for peace and dissolved itself, with surviving Vec fleeing to scattered refugee settlements. What happened in those 3 years? The records were deliberately vague. Sung-ho found references to the Awakening, the Ghost Fleet, and weapons that should not exist. One report mentioned a single human ship destroying an entire Vec battle group without taking damage. Another described Vec admirals refusing to engage human vessels, preferring to surrender rather than fight. Sung-ho pulled up the treaty that ended the war. One clause caught his attention. In recognition of the destructive potential demonstrated by both parties, the Terran Union agrees to limit its active military presence to defensive operations only. In exchange, all signatories agreed to respect human territorial claims absolutely and without exception. He leaned back, his mind racing. Humanity had not been hiding for 2 centuries. They had been showing restraint. The question was, what were they restraining? In space, the Kralix fleet crossed into the new Busan system. Draknor gave the order, and his ships began moving into attack formation. The 12 human defense platforms opened fire immediately, their plasma cannons sending bright blue bolts across the darkness. The shots were accurate but pathetic. They splashed harmlessly against the Kralix shields. Draknor laughed. "Is this the best they can offer? Destroy those platforms. Then begin orbital bombardment of the military installations. Show these humans the price of defiance." His weapons officer began targeting solutions. But before he could fire, every sensor on every Kralix ship screamed a warning simultaneously. A massive energy signature had appeared at the edge of the system. Not gradually, but instantly, as if something enormous had simply materialized from nothing. "Report!" Draknor shouted. The sensor officer's hands shook as he read the data. "Contact at system edge, bearing 270, single vessel. Mass reading is, Fleet Master, this cannot be correct. The mass reading suggests a ship 20 times the size of our flagship. Impossible. Recalibrate sensors." "Sensors are functioning correctly, Fleet Master. The vessel is real. It is. It is moving, accelerating to 0.8 light speed. Estimated arrival at our position in 12 minutes. Draknor stared at the display. A single ship? One vessel against his entire fleet? He felt a moment of doubt, then pushed it aside. "Battle stations. All ships prepare to engage. We will destroy this human ship and then proceed with the invasion." The human warship appeared on visual scanners as it drew closer. It was massive, dwarfing even the largest Kralix vessels. Its hull was pure black, seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. No running lights, no identification markings except for a single line of text in an alien script that the Kralix computers could not translate. On New Busan, Lieutenant Bora saw the contact appear on her screen. She felt tears of relief in her eyes. "It is the Indomitable," she whispered. "They sent the Indomitable." Jae-ho looked at her in confusion. "What is the Indomitable?" "Hope," Bora answered. "It is hope." The human warship came to a stop between the Kralix fleet and New Busan, positioning itself as a shield. Then it broadcast a single word in the common galactic language. The word was simple and clear. "Leave." Draknor felt his anger rise. How dare they? How dare one ship, one single vessel, presume to order his entire fleet? He opened a channel. "Human ship, you are outnumbered 40-1. Power down your weapons and surrender, or we will destroy you." The response came immediately, in a calm female voice. "This is Captain Hyo-jin of the Terran Union warship Indomitable. You have entered sovereign human space without permission. You have threatened human lives. You have been warned multiple times through proper diplomatic channels. This is your final opportunity. Leave now, or we will remove you." Draknor's patience snapped. "All ships open fire. Destroy that vessel." 40 warships turned their weapons toward the Indomitable. Missiles launched, energy weapons charged. The space between the two forces lit up with deadly fire. Hundreds of weapons struck the human ship simultaneously, and nothing happened. The missiles detonated harmlessly against shields that did not even flicker. The energy weapons splashed across the hull like water on stone. The kinetic rounds simply bounced off, drifting away into space. The Indomitable sat in space, completely undamaged, almost bored. In the silence that followed, Captain Hyojin's voice came across the channel again, still calm, still patient. "You have made your choice. We gave you every chance. Remember that." Then the Indomitable fired back. A single beam of pure white light erupted from the bow of the human ship. It was thin, precise, and impossibly bright. It struck the first Kralix battleship, passed completely through it, then hit the second ship behind it, then the third. All 3 ships exploded simultaneously, turning into expanding clouds of superheated metal and gas. Draknor stared at his screen in horror. 3 battleships, gone, in one shot. "Evasive maneuvers," he screamed. "Scatter, scatter." But it was already too late. The Indomitable was moving, and it moved like nothing that size should be able to move. Fast, precise, unstoppable. The hunting had begun. The council chamber floated in the dark of space, a massive station orbiting a dying star. Inside, representatives from 100 worlds sat in their designated seats, their forms varying from insectoid to reptilian to gaseous clouds contained in specialized chambers. They had gathered for another routine session, expecting nothing more than the usual trade disputes and border disagreements. Ambassador Tai Min walked slowly to the center platform. He was old by human standards, his hair completely white, his face marked with deep lines. He wore the simple gray uniform of the Terran Union, unadorned except for a single patch showing Earth and its moon. His hands trembled slightly as he activated the holographic display, but his voice remained steady and clear. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he began, "I come before you today with a warning. The Kralix Empire has been expanding aggressively into neutral space. 3 weeks ago, they attacked a trading station near the Vega sector. 2 weeks ago, they destroyed a civilian transport carrying refugees. Yesterday, they declared their intention to claim the New Busan system, a human colony world with 2 million inhabitants. High Arbiter Velthara, the insectoid leader of the council, clicked her mandibles in what might have been amusement. Her compound eyes reflected the chamber's lights as she shifted in her elevated seat. "Ambassador, the Kralix Empire is a recognized power with legitimate expansion interests. Your species occupies only 12 systems. Surely you can relocate your colonists to avoid conflict." Taemin's jaw tightened. He took a slow breath before responding. "New Busan has been our home for 70 years. We have followed every protocol, respected every boundary, and honored every treaty. We are not the aggressors here. We simply ask that the Council enforce its own laws regarding territorial sovereignty." A rippling laugh spread through the chamber. Council member Kuvran, a large reptilian with dark green scales, leaned forward. Unlike the others, his expression seemed more thoughtful than mocking. Ambassador, please understand our position. Humanity has been remarkably quiet for 2 centuries. You maintain a small territory, engage in minimal trade, and rarely participate in galactic affairs. The Kralix Empire, meanwhile, controls 300 systems and commands one of the largest fleets in known space. What exactly do you expect us to do? Taman looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of those who would look at him. Most seemed bored. Some appeared amused. A few looked almost pitying. He straightened his shoulders and spoke clearly. I expect you to remember history. I expect you to honor the treaties that supposedly govern this council. And I expect you to take my warning seriously. Warning? Velthara's tone dripped with condescension. What warning would that be? Do not mistake our silence for weakness, Taman said, his voice dropping lower. Do not mistake our patience for cowardice. Do not mistake our preference for peace as an inability to wage war. We have sent you formal complaints. We have followed proper channels. We have given you every opportunity to resolve this diplomatically. If you force our hand, what happens next will not be our responsibility. The chamber erupted in chittering, hissing, and various forms of laughter. Velthara raised one of her forward limbs to quiet the assembly. Ambassador, with all respect, humanity's legendary military prowess belongs to ancient history. The so-called human HFY War happened 200 years ago. Most scholars believe those records were exaggerated. One species does not defeat an empire that spanned 50 systems through conventional warfare. The stories of ghost ships and impossible weapons are clearly mythology, created to compensate for what was likely a negotiated surrender. Taman closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, there was something in his expression that made Kuvran shift uncomfortably in his seat. You are welcome to believe what you wish, the human ambassador said quietly. But I have delivered my warning. It is now logged and official. When the Kralix move against New Busan, they will be violating Terran space. How we respond will be our decision alone. He gathered his materials and began walking toward the exit. Velthara called after him. You realize, Ambassador, that the Council cannot protect you if you take aggressive action against a member empire. The Kralix have rights too. Taman stopped at the doorway. He did not turn around. We are not asking for your protection. We are informing you as a courtesy. What the Kralix have are warnings. They chose not to listen. You chose not to act. So be it. He left the chamber, the door sliding shut behind him with a soft hiss. The council members immediately began talking among themselves. Most dismissed the encounter as the desperate posturing of a weak species. But Kuvran remained quiet, staring at the door where the human had exited. Something about the old ambassador's calm certainty troubled him. 3 days later, the Kralix Empire made its announcement. Fleetmaster Draknor, a towering figure in ceremonial battle armor, broadcast his intentions across every major communication network. The New Busan system is now claimed by the Kralix Empire. We give the human colonists 48 hours to evacuate. After that time, we will assume control of all planetary resources and orbital facilities. Any resistance will be met with immediate military force. The announcement included footage of the Kralix assault fleet, 40 warships, each bristling with weapons, each bearing the crimson and black colors of the Empire. Draknor stood on the bridge of his flagship, surrounded by his officers, looking supremely confident. Let this serve as a lesson to all minor species. The age of human intimidation is over. They have hidden long enough. Now they will learn what real power looks like. On New Busan, Lieutenant Bora coordinated the evacuation from the Colonial Defense Headquarters. She was young for her position, barely 30, but she moved with practiced efficiency. Civilian transports launched constantly, carrying families and essential supplies to the outer colonies. The planetary defense platforms powered up their limited weapons, though everyone knew they would not be enough. Bora paused in her work to send a brief encrypted message to Earth. Just 4 words. They came, as expected. The response came back within minutes, also just 4 words. Help is already coming. On the council station, Dr. Sung-ho sat in the archives section, scrolling through ancient records. He was a xenohistorian, someone who studied the histories of different species. Ambassador Taman's words had stuck with him. The old human had been too calm, too certain. So Sung-ho began digging through restricted files about the human HFY War. What he found made his blood run cold. The official records were sanitized, but fragments remained in personal logs and damaged data cores. References to entire HFY fleets vanishing. reports of weapons that bent the laws of physics, testimonies from survivors who spoke of human ships appearing from nowhere, striking with impossible precision, then disappearing like ghosts. One report, filed by a VEC admiral before his ship was destroyed, read simply, "They are not like us. They do not fight like us. They do not think like us. May the gods have mercy on anyone who makes them angry." Sung Ho sat back in his chair, his hands shaking slightly. What had the council just done? The Kronath Empire didn't wait long to make their move. 2 weeks after the assembly meeting, they formed a military coalition called the Hegemony Alliance. 6 other species joined them, all of them worried about humanity's rapid rise to power. They claimed their goal was peaceful containment, but everyone knew what it really meant. They were preparing for war. General Shin Hyunwoo received the intelligence report in his command center on Mars. He was a career soldier, 60 years old, with more experience in combat simulations than actual war. Humanity hadn't fought a major conflict in over a century, but his training had been thorough, and his strategic mind was sharp. "How many ships are they mobilizing?" he asked his intelligence officer, Agent Oh Seojun. 200 confirmed, sir. Possibly more hidden in reserve. They're positioning them along our borders, claiming it's for defensive purposes. Defensive, Hyunwoo said with dark humor. Of course. How long before they're ready to attack? 3 weeks, maybe 4. They need time to coordinate between 7 different species with different technology and tactics. That gives us time to prepare. What are our current force dispositions? Seojun pulled up a holographic map showing human space. Red dots marked enemy positions. Blue dots marked human fleets. We have 80 ships positioned at key points. The Shadow Fleet has another 100 in reserve, but they're scattered across 50 systems. Not enough, Hyunwoo said bluntly. If they hit us with 200 ships in a coordinated attack, we'll be overwhelmed in any direct battle. We need to change the rules. He turned to his command staff. We're not going to fight them the way they expect. No big fleet battles, no heroic last stands. We're going to do what we do best, hide, strike, and disappear. We're going to make them afraid of the dark. 3 weeks later, the Hegemony Alliance launched their first attack. A fleet of 30 ships entered human space, targeting a research station in the outer territories. They expected resistance, maybe a small defense force. What they found was an empty station and silence. The attack force searched the system for hours, finding nothing. Then, as they prepared to leave, 15 human ships materialized out of stealth, launching missiles and energy weapons at point-blank range. The battle lasted 4 minutes. 20 Hegemony ships were destroyed. The remaining 10 fled badly damaged. The human ships vanished back into stealth before reinforcements could arrive. This pattern repeated across the border. The Hegemony would send a force to attack a human target, find it abandoned or lightly defended, and then get ambushed by stealth ships that appeared without warning. The aliens couldn't track the human vessels, couldn't predict where they would strike next, couldn't even figure out how many ships humanity actually had. Lieutenant Nam Suman led one of the special operations teams that made the Hegemony Alliance's life even more difficult. Her squad of 12 soldiers specialized in infiltration and sabotage. They would sneak onto enemy ships or stations, plant explosives or viruses, and disappear before anyone noticed. One mission took her team to a Hegemony supply depot in neutral space. The depot was massive, storing food, fuel, and ammunition for the entire Alliance fleet. It was heavily guarded with sensor grids and patrol ships. Suman's team approached in a tiny stealth shuttle, barely larger than a fighter craft. They landed on an asteroid near the depot and waited, watching patrol patterns for 2 full days. When they found a gap in the coverage, they moved. Using thruster packs, they crossed the empty space between the asteroid and the depot, moving slowly to avoid detection. They attached to the station's hull and cut through with laser torches. Inside, they moved like ghosts, avoiding cameras and guards. The depot's central computer was their target. Suman's tech specialist, a young corporal named Park, worked for 30 minutes to bypass the security. When he finally got access, he uploaded a virus that would corrupt the depot's inventory system. Supplies would be mislabeled, shipments would go to the wrong places, and the entire logistics network would collapse into chaos. They were almost out when an alarm sounded. A guard had spotted signs of their entry. Suman made a quick decision. "Plant the charges," she ordered. "We're not leaving them anything to fix." Her team scattered through the depot, placing explosives on fuel tanks, ammunition stores, and structural supports. They had 5 minutes to get back to their shuttle before the charges detonated. They made it with 30 seconds to spare. As their shuttle pulled away, the depot exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Months of supplies gone in an instant. Back on Mars, General Hyunwoo watched the reports come in with grim satisfaction. The Hegemony Alliance was suffering losses they hadn't anticipated. Their supply lines were broken, their communications were compromised, and their fleet commanders were terrified to enter human space. But Agent Seojin brought troubling news. "Sir, we've discovered evidence of alien spies in our colonies. At least 3 that we know of, possibly more. They're gathering intelligence on our ship movements and technology." "How long have they been there?" Hyunwoo asked. "Unknown. Possibly years. They're very good at hiding." Hyunwoo's expression darkened. "Find them. Use whatever resources you need. If they want to play spy games, we'll show them how it's done." Seojin's investigation led him to a colony called New Seoul. One of the suspected spies was working as a maintenance technician in the colony's shipyard, with access to sensitive areas. Seojin set up surveillance, watching the technician for weeks. The spy was careful but not perfect. Seojin caught him transmitting data to a hidden relay satellite. He didn't arrest the spy immediately. Instead, he fed the spy false information about human fleet movements, turning him into an unwitting tool of disinformation. Meanwhile, the war was reaching a critical point. The Hegemony Alliance had lost 60% of their initial force, but they were bringing in reinforcements. More importantly, they were learning. They had started using randomized patrol patterns and encrypted communications. They were adapting to human tactics. Then Captain Doyen was captured. His ship, the Silent Dawn, was on a reconnaissance mission deep in enemy territory when they encountered a trap. The Hegemony had set up false sensor readings, making it look like a supply convoy was passing through. When Doyen moved in to investigate, 20 enemy ships surrounded him. The Silent Dawn tried to escape, but a lucky shot damaged their stealth generator. Without stealth, they were helpless. Doyen surrendered to save his crew. He was brought before the Kronath Supreme Commander, a massive reptilian creature named Thox. They met in a war room on the Kronath flagship, surrounded by holographic displays showing the progress of the war. "Captain Doyen," Thox said, his voice a deep rumble. "You are famous among my people, the human who made first contact with the Vex, the one who revealed your species to the galaxy. Tell me, do you regret that decision?" "No," Doyen said simply. "Even though it led to this war was inevitable. If not now, then later. At least now we're strong enough to fight." Thox studied him for a long moment. "You humans are fascinating. We thought you would be easy to defeat. Young species usually are. They lack experience, wisdom, patience. But you have shown all 3. Your tactics are unconventional but effective. You fight like prey animals who have learned to hunt. It is disturbing." "We learned from history," Doyen said. "Your history?" "We studied every war, every conflict, every mistake made by young species who challenged the established powers. We learned what not to do." "And what did you learn about what to do?" "That power comes from will, not just weapons. That fear is a force multiplier. That an enemy who can't see you can't defeat you." Doyen leaned forward. "But we also learned something else. We learned that the galaxy has been stagnant for too long. The same powers running everything. The same rules holding everyone back. You're not afraid of us because we're dangerous. You're afraid because we're different." Thox was quiet for a moment. "Perhaps you are right. Perhaps that is what frightens us most." He gestured to the holographic displays. "Look at this map, Captain. Your forces have inflicted tremendous damage on us, but we have more ships, more resources, more allies. Eventually, we will find a way to counter your stealth technology. We will adapt just as you have adapted. And when that happens, what will you do?" Doyen met his gaze. "We'll adapt again. That's what humans do best." While Doyen was in captivity, Admiral Minho launched Operation Nightfall. It was the most ambitious military action humanity had ever attempted. 50 ships coordinated across 20 systems, striking simultaneously at key hegemony installations. The attacks were devastating. Shipyards were destroyed. Command centers went dark and entire fleets were cut off from their supply lines. The Hegemony Alliance, which had seemed unstoppable, suddenly found itself on the defensive. General Hyunwoo watched the operation from his command center, feeling the weight of every decision.